Hi. Okay, so we're going to start off with me giving a little brief overview of the piece, talking about how this fits into the goals for our class and what we're going to do with it. And then I'm going to go over the discussion questions that you're going to be posting an initial response to. And then this week following up with 3 other classmates. And I'll be jumping in those discussions as well and filling in anything that needs to be, answering any questions, commenting on your responses. Okay, so the first thing is the article summary. So in this piece, Brandt essentially explains how there's a variety of different factors that are coming into play when we talk about somebody's compilation of literacy, right? Everyone has several literacies that they're entering the classroom with, definitely traditionally reading and writing, but it can be any form of reading and writing, any form of reading and composing, and we'll get more into that later. In this piece, Brandt aims to get the reader to think about the influences that certain people or things, such as institutions or organizations, have affected their literacy levels. What levels of access they were given, what access they may have been denied, what are the influences of that, how has that impacted your relationship with reading and writing. Those are the sort of things that Brandt's hoping to get the student reader, to be thinking about as they move through this piece. So one of the things I want us to be reflecting on is how, when, and where you are born, as well as your social class, can determine the literacies you've acquired, your relationship with reading and writing, as well as yourself as well as your perception of yourself as a reader and writer. So just to say that these questions that we're going to reflect on and how they relate to you personally are important. Okay, so the first discussion question that you guys are going to be writing a response to is write a brief summary of Brandt's piece in your own words. Include in your response her main points and an explanation of literacy sponsors. So aim for around 5 or more sentences unpacking this. The next question is, Brandt argues that race and class impact how much access people have to literacy sponsors, right? So in her piece, especially as we see with Branch and Lopez, we start to delve into issues of the intersection of race and class. So for this question, I'd like you to reflect on the early education and kind of access that Branch and Lopez had, as well as personal examples either from you personally or things that you have witnessed growing up in your response. For the third question, how might Malcolm X's life been different if his literacy experiences would have been different? So these pieces were paired together because Brandt essentially, her piece serves as the theory, unpacking these ideas that are at play within our society, and this is kind of things that can and do influence us. And then Malcolm X's piece we see is an example of exactly almost all the stuff that Brandt is talking about, of what does access at this level look like? What does it look like to acquire a variety of different literacies? Are these issues of race and class the only factors going on? What are some internal factors that the individual may bring, right? We start to see the intersection of that. So I'd like you to reflect on Malcolm X's piece. How does it relate to Brandt's? And what do you think about how his literacy experiences were affected by his sponsors, by access, by everything that Brandt's talking about? And then finally, so those questions you're doing the initial response to, and then following up with 3 other people. For this one, I would like you to create another additional thread. So you'll have 2 threads that you're creating. This is separate. I'd also like to ask you to keep this for your own records. This is intended to help you when you sit down to start essay 1. These are some things that you already need to have thought about, and I like you to have a starting point. So the second thread that you're creating is consider who your primary literacy sponsors were. These can be people as well as institutions such as churches or clubs, school systems, and what literacies they taught you, whether that's academic, civic, religious, so on. Would you consider the access provided by these sponsors adequate? What literacies have you not had access to that you wish you had? Okay, so for that response, you're not doing an initial, you're not doing follow-ups, you're just doing initial, right? If you'd like to take a look at other people's too, that's fine, but you don't have to do anything more than the initial thread. So the last thing I want to go over to kind of frame the literacy narrative assignment is give you background information on the literacy narrative. Essentially, literacy narratives can be about your experiences as a small child, teenager, adult, senior, so forth. They can be about any sort of reading, right? So you can think storybooks when I was a child, like very traditional, or think about cereal boxes or music, video games, any sort of reading, as well as any sort of composing. So there's some examples of kind of non-traditional ways of composing. And literacy, finally, literacy narratives often focus on powerful memories about events, people, situation, places. So I'm thinking of where to start reflecting. Think about what stands out to you when you think about your history up until this point. When you think about reading and writing, what are those powerful memories that were really impactful to you? So in addition to responding to those discussion questions, this week, definitely you're reading the prompt for essay 1. So make sure you're going through that, thinking about it in light of our discussion, what we talked about as far as the literacy narrative, and then you're posting questions under discussion board so I can respond to those publicly so other people can benefit from those answers. Okay? All right.